The last major sweater style we'll look at today is the Raglan style, and already you have all the skills you need to make it with a quick and easy finish. Here are the pieces for the Raglan. In this case, you need to make each piece individually, paying attention to the type and placement of these decreases, just as you saw in those Raglan samples. And when all the pieces are finished, you lay it out just like this diagram. So these seams first, the yoke, fold it over just like we did with the drop shoulder, and then sew the underarm and sleeve seams. Finish the neckline, work in the ends, and you're finished. Now we're going to talk about blocking, which is that very final process to put a crisp finish on the fabric that you've worked on. There are many ways to do it, and many people like to block their pieces before they put them together, but as you've seen, I like to do my pieces together first and then block. More than anything, your blocking depends on the type of fiber that you're using, and the easiest kind to block is a wool or an alpaca or a natural fiber. You can either wet the entire garment, and by the way, all the samples you saw today were made out of wool. You can wet the entire thing, or you can simply steam it. What I have here is a wet towel, which I am going to lay over a critical area, and with an iron, I am going to not press any weight down on the fabric itself, but just lightly touch it so that the steam goes through the fabric, and then I'm going to take an old spoon that my aunt had and I'm going to pound it. You can see this is just like tailor's clappers. By the way, there's a nice soft towel under here so that I don't destroy the table. And what I have is a nice pressed seam. You never steam the ribbing, which will stretch that out, but all of these critical areas I like to go bit by bit and pound all the seams. Now I want you to look at the difference between this finished blocked seam and an unblocked one. See how that tends to roll over? See how nicely we flattened it out? Ordinarily, I don't like to block the actual fabric of a sweater, but this one I had to steam the entire thing and almost press it flat. That's because this is silken wool, this is wool, and every section of wool was bumped up. However, when possible, the reason you hand knit it in the first place is you want to have these nice textures, so try not to do too much pounding entirely flat unless it's really going to contribute to the look of the garment. When you have something like cotton, and most cotton and string fibers like silk need to be washed in order to block them. I literally just washed this in the washing machine and dried it in the dryer, removed it just before it was entirely dry, and patted it. I didn't pound it at all. I wouldn't want to squash any of this texture, and as you see, it looks perfectly finished. This is the seam right along there where I picked up and knit down. You can treat acrylics or any other synthetic fibers the same way I treated the cotton. Run it through a wash cycle, then put it into the dryer. In fact, you can put it in the washing machine without any soap. Just run it through a water cycle, put it into the dryer. Just before it's entirely dry, take it out, pound it flat, pat it flat, and when it's dry, it will be finished. Don't try to steam any acrylic fibers because the heat might actually melt them. The most important thing to do is to consult your ball band to find out how to treat that particular fiber and use that as your guide for blocking. The art of finishing is fairly complex. I've been at this business of knitting for about 35 years, actually over 35 years. And every time I do a project, I learned just a little bit more, just one little tip here, a way to do it better. But hopefully, armed with what you've learned today in this class, you will have a good start so that you can get better and better with each project. Thank you for joining me, and best wishes for a happy finish.